media trained, media literate KJ Miller should have said, wow, that's dope. Let me go find the facts. I just sort of assumed this person had found the facts. Well, she had not. Hello and welcome to Queen Things. I am KJ Miller. I am a founder, a lecturer, a content creator, and I'm ready to gab with all of you. We do have a fair amount to talk about today. Of course, Taylor Swift is in the news again because she finally made the decision to silence the many audios that Trump has been using. And I do have thoughts on that, as do many of you. I have seen so many videos about it. We are going to talk about that. I want to talk about influencers. Am I an influencer? I don't know. It depends on who you ask. I think of myself as a creator, but I am perpetually online. So I do feel like I'm allowed to have an opinion on perpetually online folks, including Jools LeBron, who has been making news because she started a GoFundMe. And there are people who feel like you have millions of followers and therefore you must somewhere have access to millions of dollars, and or you should get a job like the rest of us and should not be asking us, your followers, for money. A lot of people had thoughts, and I have thoughts too. So we're going to talk about that. What else? Oh, we're going to dive into the conversation that's being had around influencers a bit more broadly because there's a shop in Nantucket, if you haven't heard the news, that put up a sign that said no influencers. And then that turned into a whole conversation around whether or not it is okay to discriminate against influencers. There are literally people treating influencers like a protected class, which I do find a bit funny, but some points are being made, and I want to talk about that. Oh, and of course, I am going to react to some of your comments about last week's episode as it relates to Ariana Grande, and we're going to end with what I'm reading. Let's get into it. Let's kick off with your responses to the Ariana Grande of it all. I posted a video, as I often do, a clip from the last episode. The crux of the clip was, are you guys happy now that she is stepping away? Are you happy with all of the commenting you did? Are you happy about all the videos you made? By and large, the answer was yes. Yes, you are happy. Let's read some of the comments. Okay, so starting over on TikTok, someone named Skirt 997755 said, well, I was just observing, not a commentator. As someone who has recovered from same thing she's most likely going through, it took people being a little bit mean to me to allow myself to accept the help I needed. So yeah, I was happy to hear she's listening. I hope she can find peace and health. Okay, that was from Skirt. I'm assuming that's how they pronounce it. Someone named Bella replied, yes, as someone who suffered from Anna for decades, who has multiple people in my life with severe EDs are a socially contagious illness. So yes, I feel better that she's taking a step back to rest and perspective at least, or actually get help. We can only hope. We know she has an ED because of her Tumblr days. We can see her currently engaging in ED behavior and dog whistles. It may feel uncomfortable to call it out, but healing is not comfortable. And the longer it's put off, the more deadly it becomes. Okay, that was Bella. Zane said, yes, the alternative was watching her die in front of our eyes. All right. Travin said, I made a video about this as a therapist. Concern is what saves people from ED. It's uncomfortable and complicated, but silence is a death sentence. And then the last one I'll read from TikTok. This is from someone named Becca Ashman. I think that a lot of relentless folks are in recovery and understand the seriousness of the moment because half their friends in treatment didn't make it. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what's going on, but those who know what it is know and aren't going to pretend they don't, so another generation can deal with this. Okay, so by and large, a lot of you are saying, yes, I am happy. If us speaking out, if the videos, if calling out the behavior is what is now pushing her to take the time she needs, I'm happy we did it, because the alternative is her dying. I mean, that's literally what y'all are saying, and I'm just reporting what's being said here. Let's look over on Instagram. I actually got more views over on Instagram, but fewer comments. That happens a lot. That's an aside, but that happens a lot. I might get more views on IG, but more engagement on TikTok. That's neither here nor there. Let's see what you're saying over on IG. I will say the vibe on IG is a bit more mixed. I felt like the vibe on TikTok was very much, this is what needed to happen. And I am glad that she's taking the time, whatever needed to happen happened. On IG, more mixed. I'm seeing takes like that, but I'm also seeing more takes like this. This is from Peary, please. No, we should never normalize the violent scrutiny of women without exception. I saw more takes like that. This one from Brianne Rochelle. It's terrible. Maybe she felt best working and doing what she loves and living her life. Maybe she needed that to best support her, whatever it is she's going through or not going through. We are forcing her into things. We should let her live. We know nothing about her or what's going on. Let her live. Someone named Susanna said it's super icky. And then someone named Taisha Renault. Oh no, Ty is here now. Took me a minute. This is also sad. I can't believe society has dictated what women should look like so much that we try to slowly remove ourselves from society permanently. May the universe protect us all. Okay, so, more of a mixed bag, but there were comments on IG kind of echoing what I read from TikTok. Look, I said what I felt I needed to say, which was, I didn't feel great about how all of this went down. I didn't feel great seeing the relentless commentary. It very much felt like it was going from quote unquote concern to honestly bullying, or if not bullying, then shaming. It felt very hostile for what people were claiming to be concern. However, if you genuinely believe she is at risk of dying, and you genuinely believe the only way forward is by saying the uncomfortable thing, then, I can understand that, I guess. I don't know. I still don't feel great about it, but I do appreciate you guys engaging and having the conversation, being willing to go back and forth. I saw one person in the comments say, and I get this all the time, I love you, but this take I don't agree with, or like, this is the only take of yours that I just am really kind of about. And I'll say it again. I've said it before. It is perfectly okay for us to disagree. Hopefully you feel like I am being respectful in sharing my thoughts on whatever the situation is. And I would love for you to be respectful when you reply. And as long as we're keeping it cute, I have no problem with us disagreeing. Okay. And this is a sensitive one. So it makes sense that we're not on the same page about it, all of us. Well, again, I wish Ariana well. So those were some of your comments. Let's dig into the next topic, which is Taylor Swift. So if you are familiar with Taylor at all, then you have heard the news that this week she began taking her music off of Trump's posts. By that, I mean, if you go to a number of posts where Trump has used some of her songs, they have either been completely muted or the sound has been replaced with a new song. And a lot of Swifties got online to make videos about this, not just to announce, hey, she did this thing that all of you were upset at her for not doing. But then the story quickly morphed into, not only did she get the music taken down or whatever, but she actually did this bigger thing, which was she lobbied TikTok to get them to change their rules to make it easier for artists to, ban their music from certain accounts. Okay. And I actually engaged with one of those posts. It's a creator. I don't know if I follow her, but I get served her videos a lot. She makes a ton of Taylor Swift content. I honestly don't know if she posts about anything other than Taylor. That's all that gets served to me, where she basically reported and said, like, it's looking like, to her credit, she did not say this thing definitely happened. She said, it's looking more and more like Taylor has lobbied TikTok to make banning your songs from certain accounts, easier for all artists. Basically, she threw her weight around, as she often does, to make it better, not just for her, but for artists more broadly. And when I saw that, I engaged with it and I said, like, wow, that really is like big news. And I should have media trained, media literate KJ Miller should have said, wow, that's dope. Let me go find the facts. I just sort of assumed this person had found the facts. Well, she had not. She had not found the facts. I have looked high and I have looked low. I cannot find a single substantiated source. By that, I mean a CNN, a New York Times, a Variety, a Washington Post. I cannot find anybody to report that she went to TikTok and lobbied on behalf of artists more broadly, or even for herself, that she had any communication, frankly, other than doing the process that has already been laid out for TikTok, which is submitting a copyright violation, which you can do. Other artists have done. She is not the first to do it. And she could have done it many, many months ago. So I'm not saying she hasn't had any conversations with TikTok. I'm not saying she hasn't thought about any other legal avenues. I can't get inside her brain. What I'm saying is the people who have gotten online and stated as fact that she has in fact done this bigger, broader thing, lobbied TikTok, gone down this legal path, made it easier for artists, so on and so forth. None of that is substantiated. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't look like any of that happened. It looked like she just, for whatever reason, this week decided to finally exercise the copyright violation path that was always available to her and that other artists have taken. That is what it looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to read to you from CNN. Just this is information that, again, because it's reporters reporting news, I feel like we can trust. Okay, so the title of the article is Taylor Swift takes a quieter approach to Trump using her music on social media. The article reads, Olivia Rodrigo, Katy Perry, Noah Kahan, and Sabrina Carpenter all have well-documented histories of speaking out against President Donald Trump. But when it comes to use of their music by the White House, not everyone is so vocal. In recent days, Taylor Swift's music quietly disappeared from TikTok posts from the White House and Team Trump campaign accounts without public condemnation, clapback, or commenting from the singer, who is very protective of her brand. One post, which featured the president and first lady viewing fireworks over Swift's song August, had its music changed to a country-inspired song with the lyrics, I love Trump, make America great again. Others, including one that quotes lyrics from Swift's father figure over images of Trump, say simply, this sound isn't available. It's unclear whether the threat of legal action loomed in the background or whether the pop star's team communicated anger to the White House. A spokesperson for Swift did not respond to CNN's request for comment. Swift has often been calculating about her activism and endorsements, mindful that weighing in on politics can upset her huge fan base. Others have taken a louder approach. When Perry's firework played boom, boom, boom over declassified images of military strikes on an 8-second TikTok video, the pop star said she was deeply appalled by its use, which she called a complete violation of everything my song stands for. The song has been removed from the post. Khan weighed in when his hit American Cars was used alongside images of the president at a General Motors facility in Michigan. Would never approve of my music being used in support of you or this administration, he wrote in the comment section for the Instagram post, which subsequently had its music removed. Carpenter called the use of her hit Juno in a White House video depicting law enforcement apprehending individuals in apparent immigration actions evil and disgusting. That video was deleted from X. In a similar video posted by the Department of Homeland Security, media for one of Olivia Rodrigo's songs All American Bitch was disabled on Instagram, though it still appears on X. The singer-songwriter slammed the use of her song in a since-removed reply, writing, "Don't ever use my songs to promote your racist, hateful propaganda." Okay, it goes on from there. But the point this article is making is clear. Taylor has had her songs removed, but she has not made any public statements, unlike other artists who have been vocal about their music being used by Trump's administration. And I think that is a very fair thing for them to be calling out. Some of the takes that I have seen on this have basically called the fact that Taylor removed the music but hasn't said anything. It's almost like they're saying that's the better way to do it. Like, she's not being performative. She doesn't need to be loud. You know, real G's move in silence like lasagna. No one has said that. That's me quoting Lil Wayne. I haven't seen anyone say that. But you know, that's kind of what they're saying. Like, no, this is Taylor being about it. Okay, she doesn't have to talk about it. This is her being about it. Okay, and I can respect that. Like, I do think we have seen other instances where Taylor isn't like really trying to like talk about it. She just does the thing. But we also know when things are important to her, there are plenty of times where she does talk about it. Like, I think about when she gave those big bonus checks to all of her dancers on Eras Tour. she said, I think she said in the documentary itself, or maybe in an interview afterward, like, part of the reason I wanted it to be known that I did this was because I want it to be more of an industry standard. I want people to see me do this so that dancers are treated better on other tours. It was important to her. She could have given out those bonus checks in silence. She could have just been like, yo, here's an extra $100,000. Don't tell anybody about it. But she didn't do it in silence. And according to her, the reason she didn't do it in silence wasn't because she wanted to get a pat on the back from everyone, although she did in fact get that pat on the back deservedly. It was because she is trying to impact how dancers are treated in the industry. She knows she does have her thumb on the scale. Is that the phrase? Her finger on the pulse, thumb on the scale. As it relates to the industry, a lot of what she does become the norm. So because we have seen Taylor be vocal in the past about things that are important to her, including those checks that she wrote for her dancers, I think it's fair of CNN to call out, this is one of those times where she's not being vocal. She's decided, yeah, I'm going to remove the audio, but I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to make a statement about, Trump being a fascist. I'm not going to make a statement about this being propaganda or me not being aligned with his politics. I'm not going to talk about any of that. I am just going to quietly remove my audio roughly 8 months after he started posting it, right? Because I think it was pretty shortly after her album came out, which was last October, that he started using the audio, like they mentioned in the article. He used father figure. He may have used opalite. Like, this has been going on for quite some time. And so, some people's take might be she didn't have to say anything. She just did what she did. And she's not out here trying to make a big stink about it. She's just doing what she needs to do to protect her music. Cool. Maybe. The question then does become, well, why now and why not before? And I don't know the answer to that. Like, I don't know if it is because on the back end, she was in the middle of trying to go about it some other way, trying to have a conversation with TikTok about it. And they said, no, we're not going to change our terms. So you can do, the avenue that is open to you, or you can do something else. That's possible. I'm not going to assume that that's happening, which is what I think a lot of people are just very ready to assume. Like, Taylor definitely was doing something in the back this whole time. I don't know why we would assume that. She was also planning a wedding this whole time. Like, I could say the wedding maybe being a little bit more important to her. I don't know. I'm not going to assume that, but it does sort of raise the question, like, okay, so yeah, why now? Is there a reason why it's happening now? Is it because, like Swifties have been saying all month, she's planning on releasing debut or releasing some concert tickets, or I don't know. And in the lead up to that, she doesn't want all this music being on Trump's account. I don't know. I truly don't know. I'm glad she did it, but it is interesting to me how many people seem to, one, want to ascribe something much bigger happening than what has actually happened, and two, wanting to say her being silent about it is actually a good thing, or actually how we know that she has bigger plans, or has always been doing the right thing. I don't know how her silence can mean all of that. It seems just as likely to me that her silence is the result of her not wanting to anger a portion of her fan base that almost certainly is MAGA. I think it's reasonable to assume that Taylor Swift has MAGA fans. She has MAGA friends. So that's not an unreasonable thing to assume. So yeah, it could be that she's not saying anything because she feels like, I don't need to say anything. Like, I've said enough. I've spoken up. I endorsed Kamala. Like, I don't need to say more. And so I'm being silent because what more is there even to say? It could be that. It could just as easily, and I think just as likely, be that she's being silent because she doesn't want to anger whatever portion of her fan base might be angered by her saying more. I think both of those things are just as likely. I've said before and I'll say again, do I wish she had spoken up before? Yes. Is it disqualifying for me as a Swiftie that she didn't? No, it's not. It's not disqualifying, but I'm not going to bend myself up in knots trying to make it seem like something bigger happened here than it did. She got the music taken off of his account. I think that's a pretty clear indication she does not want Trump using her music, and I'm happy about that. And I can celebrate that for what it is without making it into something bigger than it is. But I am happy that she took this move. Like, that is a good thing. I hope she continues to keep this man from using her music, because whether you think it's a small act or a big act, it is an act that continues to let us know how she feels about this person. She didn't endorse him. She endorsed his opponent twice, 2 different elections. And that's a good thing. And with that, let's turn our attention to influencers, starting with Jools LeBron. So, who is Jools LeBron, first of all? If you're not sure, she's a creator who's most well known because she kicked off that trend, very mindful, very demure. If you heard that phrase but weren't sure where it came from Jools LeBron. She's a trans woman. She is known for giving kind of spicy, short, hot takes and laughing. She has this laugh that's like very boisterous. Anyway, and I think it was about 2 years ago, she did that very mindful, very demure trend. It wasn't a trend when she said it. It was just something she said. It took off like wildflower. She was everywhere after that, including at the Renaissance tour in Chicago. I saw her there. Everyone waved at her as she walked in. It was like she was a celebrity. And she was sitting very close to, if not with, Tina Knowles. Okay, she blew up, and she, during the time, was being interviewed. She said she was getting paid, $40,000 to $80,000 a post by some brands. Like, she was making money. Well, she fell on hard times and fell back into addiction, which she has been honest about. She's been honest about the fact that pre-blowing up, she had struggled with addiction, and that she sort of fell back into addiction. She also dealt with, she talked about being sexually abused, really some hard shit, okay? And because of her addiction, she is now dealing with dental issues. She has several rotting teeth, according to her, and she got online, spoke about it, and started a GoFundMe and said, it's very, very expensive to fix my teeth. She started a GoFundMe for $45,000 and said she had already spent upwards of $6,000 on her teeth, but every time she goes to the dentist, it's very clear, like she's fighting an uphill battle. And so it sounds like now she essentially needs like new teeth. Like it's not something she can just sort of fix one by one. Okay. Well, she faced a lot of backlash, basically because people were like, why are you asking us for money when you could get a full-time job like the rest of us? Like, this is a tough economy. We're all struggling. So why should we be giving you our money? Why aren't you getting a job and working? And to that, I did see where she replied and said, it's actually very hard to be someone who's very well known, an influencer who's very well known, and just go get a 9 to 5. And also she basically said, like, and I'm not even sure it would help at this point, given, I guess, just how expensive it's going to be to get these teeth done. Well, again, she faced a lot of backlash. Many, many people made videos about it, said it was basically very distasteful. And so she ended up deleting the video, deleting the GoFundMe. She said everyone who had donated would be refunded. And then she also more recently made a video saying she's walking away from TikTok. I don't know if she's walking away forever or just briefly, but basically she said, I've been trying to chase that fame of very demure, and I'm never going to get back there. This algorithm doesn't love me. It's not going to happen. And so I need to just accept that, walk away, live my life. All right. So that's the context. I have since seen many, many takes, both in support of and, in defense of Jools, and then also people basically saying this is very tone deaf and influencers shouldn't do this. Where do I fall? Well, I'll just say right off the bat, I don't necessarily find it offensive for anyone to ask people for money, because at the end of the day, it is an ask, and people have got to decide, have got to use all the brain cells they have to decide whether or not they think someone should have their hard-earned dollars. So asking for money, I'm not offended by it really when anybody does it. Like, okay, you asked, now it's up for people to decide if they want to give it to you. You know, the same way, not the same, this is different, but there are people who get so upset with all the merch that Taylor drops or all of the, the variants she puts out. It's like, well, but she's not putting a gun to anybody's head and making people spend their money on these variants and these voice notes and, and these headbands or whatever else. So to me, people have got to decide how they want to spend their hard-earned dollars. And if they want to spend it helping Jools LeBron get new teeth, that's their business. So I am not someone who thinks it's just so distasteful for someone to ask. I can understand that viewpoint, but I just feel like we are past the age of shame when it comes to asking people for money. People have asked for money for the most ridiculous things. I have seen it all. At this point, none of it surprises me. So I'm not upset for anybody getting online and asking for money. Again, you get to decide whether or not you give them the money. So starting there, I wasn't upset about that as it relates to Jools. I will say I saw my mutual Francesca Ramsey actually made a video about how easy it is when you are kind of quickly and unexpectedly making a lot of money from being a person online. It is easy to spend a lot of money and to not be smart with your money. And I didn't watch her whole YouTube video. I just watched the clip that she put on social. She does a whole YouTube video about it. But she is someone who, one of the many reasons I have so much respect for Francesca is she is someone who's been online making viral content for well over a decade. Her first viral video was in 2012. Here we are in 2026. She's still regularly making viral content. But as she shared in her video, she also has a 9-to-5. And Francesca is like me. Okay. They call me KJ Keep a Job Miller. She is Francesca Keep a Job Ramsey. Okay. Francesca always has a lot of pots on the stove. Is that the phrase? I really need to learn my idioms. She always has a lot of things going. Okay. She is making money from writing shows, selling scripts. She's making money from her podcast. She's making money from, yes, viral content, getting paid by these platforms, paid by YouTube, paid by TikTok, paid by Meta. She is making these dollars and these cents. And I personally have always felt like I need to not just keep a job, but keep many jobs. As someone who knows what it feels like to kind of be on the brink, to watch my company almost crash and burn, and to be looking at a mortgage and looking at my family and thinking like, oh shit, what am I going to do? That is part of the reason I have many jobs, because I'm always going to do my best to have multiple streams of income, because we are all much closer to being homeless than we are to being millionaires. I mean, that's a fact. Most of us are a couple paychecks away. So I'm never going to be someone who, if tomorrow I find out this podcast is bringing in $50,000 a month in ad revenue, ooh, my lips to God's ears, I would not then think to myself, blow it all. Let's hit the casino. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Most of it would go directly into savings in our various accounts, because that's just how I've always been. And my dad is extremely frugal. Like, he always impressed upon me the importance of savings. As soon as I got my first job, most of my money from every paycheck went directly into a savings account. But that has been trained in me. I have been reared that way. Not everybody has, which is part of the point of Francesca's video. Like, for a lot of people, as soon as they start getting the money, they start spending the money because that's what they're used to. And I don't know for a fact if that's Jools' situation. As she spoke about, she has struggled with addiction. But I think it's tough to expect that everybody is going to know exactly what to do with their money once they get it. Like, the reason I know what to do with it is because that's how I was raised. I was raised by an incredibly frugal dad who put into my brain, you don't spend money, you save money. Like, truly, I never knew how much money my parents did or didn't have, but I know they had a lot more of it than we spent. That much I knew for sure. Okay. Because when it came time to go to college, all three, me, my sisters and I, none of us took out student loans. My parents paid for all of it. You want to know where we went? Princeton, Harvard, and Georgetown. Go look up how much those schools cost. Just pause and go look up how much they cost. Okay. We didn't take out not one loan. Why? Because my dad saved his money. His money and my mom's money. My mom actually made more money than my dad. That's not the point of any of this. The point is, they saved it. Okay. And so I grew up knowing what it means to save your dollars and your cents. Not everybody does. Not everyone grows up that way. And so, yes, she was making a lot of money according to her, coming off of that very mindful, very demure. Sounds like she also spent a lot of it. Sounds like she spent a lot of it on drugs. And so now the money isn't here. And so the story goes for a lot of people. So to me, the biggest lesson coming out of this is save your money. That's the biggest lesson coming out of it for me. I'm not offended by Jools asking people for money. I'm not offended by people wanting to help fund her dental work. I'm not offended by people saying, no, that isn't something that I want to fund. If I'm going to start funding dental work, I would like it to be mine or my child who might need braces. Like that's who I'm thinking about. If I'm donating money to you, I better be putting the exact same amount of money in my kids' college fund, because just like my parents did for me, when my daughter goes to college, I don't want her to have to take out not one single loan. You know what that means? That means I'm saving. I am saving every single month because that is what I want to give to my daughter. And not everybody thinks that way. That to me is the biggest takeaway, folks. Save your money. Save your money. And since we're on the topic of influencers, let's turn our attention to the Nantucket influencers that are causing some ire. A couple weeks ago, an antique store on Nantucket. Have I been to Nantucket? Let me think about this. No. I've been to a couple bougie white islands on the East Coast. I've been to Martha's Vineyard. I've been to Cape Cod. Have I been to Nantucket? I don't think so. It's another bougie island that whites love to go to. Okay. A couple weeks ago, a store owner, an antique store owner, hung up a sign that said, no influencers. Is that what it said? Or influencers not allowed, or influencers get the fuck out, something to that effect. And then it got people all riled up, particularly influencers, and in particular, one influencer named Paige Loren. So I'm going to read from an article in The Cut titled, People Are Tired of Feeling Like Extras in Someone Else's Video. Why a Nantucket antique store owner is beefing with influencers like Paige Lorenz. This is by Stephanie McNeil. It begins, when John Sylvia decided to hang a sign in his family's antiques and handmade craft shop that read no influencers, he wasn't doing it to go viral. The sign was made for people walking in the store or walking by and looking in the window, he tells me. That distinction perhaps illustrates his entire reason for posting it. Sylvia, whose grandfather started Sylvia's Antiques in 1927 and who later merged it with Four Winds Craft Guild, was born and raised on Nantucket, so he's used to seeing the tension that sometimes bubbles up between locals and well-heeled summer vacationers who pour into the 14-mile-long island off the coast of Massachusetts every summer. But as if all of a sudden tourism has exploded on the tiny island and he has a bone to pick with some of the selfie stick wielding customers this latest tourism wave has washed in. He says a lot of people are tired of feeling like extras in someone else's video. Like, fucking talk to me. Talk to anyone in my store. A little further down, the article says, Nantucket is particularly trendy among a certain demographic. Scroll-savvy companies are bringing groups of content creators on brand trips to the island who post videos advising followers what to pack. Flowy dough and peasant tops, a raincoat in case the notoriously fickle weather turns, where to eat, a cone at the juice bar, a sandwich at Provisions, and what to do. Visit a lighthouse, smell the flowers on Sunset Bluff Walk. This sounds so boring to me. But, to each his own. It seems Nantucket is the new social media vacation hotspot, like Tulum, the Amalfi Coast, and Charleston before it. Okay, this is a very long article. It goes on and on about how the locals are upset because the influencers are coming into the space. They're not respecting the history of the island or how cute it is, so on and so forth. You can read it. But if you scroll, we get to the crux of the article, which is this sign that he hung up and then Paige Lorenz's response. Okay, so it says, the sign immediately touched a nerve. It quickly spread across the internet, drawing more than 10,000 likes and being reposted on Reddit and by other small businesses on Instagram. Commenters split between cheering Sylvia on and criticizing him for hating on a cohort that is easily stereotyped and overwhelmingly female. One of those who spoke out was influencer Paige Lorenz, who has nearly 2 million followers across platforms. This summer, young women have been willing to stand on ridiculously long lines for the chance to shop at the first retail location of her clothing store, Dairy Boy. The 28-year-old grew up visiting the island where her grandparents owned a home. Okay, so she's rich, and dreamed of adding her store to the row of small businesses on its main drag. In Nantucket, every shop downtown was established by a person, not a corporation, she says, adding, "What has moved me most is watching girls come to Nantucket for the first time because of us and fall in love with the island the way I did as a kid." As a reminder, this is a very rich white island, but cool. And then she says, when she saw Sylvia's post, Lorenz wrote in part that if you call yourself a feminist but proudly put up a no influencer sign, it's worth asking who you are attempting to delegitimize and why. She tells me that she simply wanted to share her opinion, and since the post went viral, she's been stopped all over the island by people wanting to engage with the debate. Some of the locals, she says, have told her stories of how the whalers who built Nantucket initially resented the summer tourists who flooded the island after the industry collapsed, but that they ultimately ended up keeping its economy afloat. And I think she makes a good point here. She says everything Nantucket is proudest of was once new, and usually it arrived with someone the island wasn't sure it wanted. I have no issue with this shop, and I hope people keep walking in and supporting island craftspeople. I just think Nantucket's story is more generous than that sign. She also makes the point that she thinks people use influencers as a catch-all term. She says, rude behavior doesn't belong to a profession, and everyone on Main Street is holding a phone these days. This island also fills up every summer with bankers, lawyers, and developers, and nobody has ever carved a sign about any of them. The one job that got a sign is the one built almost entirely by young women. People can draw their own conclusions about that. Okay. It goes on from there, but you get the gist. I think she is making some points here worth making. And I think the shop owner is too, right? So when it comes to Paige Lorenz's point about the influencer industry being mostly occupied by women, she's right about that. And I think most of the dollars being made by influencers are being made by women. And I also think, I've seen people talk about the fact that there are men who are doing more or less the same thing as women, but articles will call them out as podcasters. Articles will call them out as streamers before they will call them out as influencers, even if they're largely doing the same sorts of things that, someone else, a woman is doing who would be called an influencer. So not only are the majority of influencers women and the majority of dollars being made by women influencers, but also there is it seems like hesitance to even use the title influencer to describe men doing largely the same thing. And I do think that that's interesting. And I do think there is some just very obvious sexism at play there. And so I think this Paige Lorenz lady, who I'm not very familiar with, I've never followed her, I've never been served her content, and I certainly don't know anything about a Dairy Boy. I do think she is making a good point that people do seem willing to be very derogatory towards influencers. And the fact that most influencers are women matters, right? It matters because tale as old as time. Whenever a woman is doing something, people want to find a way to poo-poo on it. All of that, I think, is true. And I think is, a good point. I also think a shop owner noticing that this influx of influencers and how they are treating people on the island, treating these small businesses and being upset by that, I think that is also allowed. And I don't know if it's that different from, I remember when skateboarding was huge. Maybe it's still huge and I'm just old. But I remember when skateboarding was huge and all of a sudden I just would see businesses, particularly in little coastal cities or whatever, boardwalks, whatever, saying no skateboards. Don't skateboard here. Don't skateboard outside my shop. And, to my knowledge, most skateboarders were teenage boys, right? But it wasn't them saying, we don't want teenage boys here. It was literally them saying, we don't want you skateboarding up and down our block because, you're running into folks and we don't like it. Right. And so it kind of is reminiscent to me of that. I think sometimes people just are very hesitant when it comes to change, and very territorial when it comes to their block, their neighborhood. And so I'm not sure if this is that different from what we've seen before, as Paige Lorenz calls out herself. When new people flock to a place, oftentimes the people who are from there or who live there or who are there more regularly don't like those new people. I've heard people in the Hamptons talk about it. I've heard people in Martha's Vineyard talk about it. I've heard people in Atlanta talk about it. Oh, these new folks, like everyone wants to come to Atlanta now. You know, my family's been in Atlanta for this many years. This is not uncommon. And so while I think her point about the influencer industry being mostly occupied by women and people being derogatory towards it is a very fair point, and a lot of people's takes as it relates to influencers are sexist, I think you can also hold space for someone feeling territorial about where it is they're from and wanting people to be respectful about that space. I think both of these things can be true, I guess is what I'm saying. Me personally, can't see myself rushing to get to Nantucket anyway, okay? Whether you're welcoming influencers or not, can't see myself rushing to get there, can't see myself rushing to get to this antiques shop, cannot see myself rushing to get any form of a Dairy Boy merchandise. So all of this feels very foreign to me. All of this feels very much over there to me, but I do feel like both of these things can be true. This man wants people to be respectful coming up in his store. She wants people to respect influencers. And I think we can do both. In reality, I know that so far this episode is not that long, but I have been recording for over 90 minutes because we've been in the middle of a storm. And so my internet kept going out. So I feel like I have been recording my whole life. And because of that, this is going to be a shorter episode. I'm going to jump right on into what I'm reading because y'all, I have got to get up from this spot. I've been at it for too long. And the book I have to tell you about that I just finished is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. It is without doubt my number one book of the year. Now, have I said that multiple times after finishing other books? Yes. But as of today, my number one book of the year. So good and so unexpected. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It's a book about friends and video game developers. If you told me, hey, KJ, do you want to read this book about video game developers? I'd be like, no. Why would I want to read that? Oh my God, so beautiful. And every page, something about the way this woman writes. I've never read any of her other stuff. Now I kind of want to go back and read other work of hers. Something about the way she writes is so captivating. It's almost like I just would find myself smiling randomly after reading a page just because of the way she described it, or the choices she made about when to reveal a thing about a person. I don't know. I felt very good reading it. Yes, it was sad. Yes, there were sad moments, but it also was very funny in places. It was a story about friendship. It's a story about life. It's a story about the way you want life to bend to your will and how video games let you do that and how that's a part of life, but also not a part of real life. It's a story about a lot. And apparently it's being made into a movie, which I didn't know going into it. So now I'm excited for the movie. It just was gorgeous, just a gorgeous book. I highly encourage you to read it. I eyeball read it. That's what people call it now, as opposed to listening. I'm learning. I'm an audiobook girly, so I mostly listen to books. I eyeball read this book because it was a gift to me, and I'm glad I did because it takes me much longer to finish a book I'm eyeball reading because the only time I have to eyeball read is right before bed. I'll read for like 20, 30 minutes and then I'll go to sleep. So it took me a long time, and I didn't read it every single night. But I'm glad I did because it allowed me to luxuriate in this book, just like really, really get into it, and I loved it. So that is my recommendation to you if you are looking for a good book to just luxuriate in. I thought it was fantastic, and I hope if you pick it up, you let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.